Okay, today we're going to be taking square roots to solve quadratics. And I'm going to refresh your memory on something that we did, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where it's the difference of two squares. Now you have to remember perfect squares. Perfect squares, write them down, are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 8 times 8 is 64, 81. Those are perfect squares. They're in the diagonal of the multiplication chart. So right here, these are perfect squares. Okay, if they're in that diagonal, then you can take the square root of it and it comes out perfect. Like the square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. The square root of 81 is 9 because 9 times 9 is 81. Those are perfect squares. Remember those? Well, when I told you about the difference of squares, I told you that it has to be a difference and they both have to be squares. And when that happens, then one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Right? Same thing here. Difference of two squares. So the answers, one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. And it doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter. Those are factors. So take the square root of x squared. The square root of x squared is x. So x times x. And the square root of 16 is 4. So 4 times 4, right? Over here, same thing. The square root of 36 is 6. So 6 and 6. And then the square root of x squared is x. X and x. Do y'all remember that? Difference of squares is something that you just have to memorize. Okay, so those are factors. Those are not solutions. Remember, solutions, if they do ask you for solutions, just change the sign. So this one would be x equals -4, and this one would be x equals +4. Easy. Over here, change the sign. This one would be x equals -6. This one would be x equals +6. Done. So I can factor and I can find solutions all at the same time. Today's work. Today's work, we're doing the same thing, but we're instead of finding the factors, we're going to go straight into the solving. Okay, so those are going to be equations in the form of ax squared minus c equals 0. Where there is no bx. That means there's no x in the middle. Okay? So here are the steps to solving these type of quadratics. This is difference of squares, but I can solve it just like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x squared. That means I want the x squared by itself. So if I want the x squared by itself, what do I need to move over? I need to move that -16 to the other side and make it a what? +16. Okay? So 0 plus 16 is 16 equals x squared. So step number 1 is done. All I had to do was move it over, change the sign. Step number 2 is take the square root of both sides. That means square root this side and square root this side. Okay, take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is just x, and the square root of 16 is 4. But, watch this, it's going to be a plus or a minus 4. That symbol means plus or minus. Okay? Read this. Remember that positive numbers always have two square roots. So my answer is going to be x equals +4 and x equals -4. Okay, so that's how we're going to do today's problems. They're all the same. So let's get to it. Let's do problem number 1. Really, yeah, problem number 1. So what's the first thing you need to do? So move this over, change the sign, right? So plus 100. So then I have x squared equals 100. What's the second step? Take the square root. Square root, square root. What's your answer? X equals plus or minus, what's the square root of 100? Here's 100. It's 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. So plus or minus 10. That means x equals positive 10 and x equals negative 10. Okay? Do problem 2 by yourself. Pause the video, do problem number 2. Okay, so you should have done this one already by yourself. If you haven't, you need to do it first before you press play. You're going to move the negative 36 over, change the sign to a plus 36. That's x squared equals 36. Take the square root of both sides. What is the square root of 36? 6. So we have x equals plus or minus 6. That means x can equal 6 and x can equal negative 6. Perfect. All right, let's get into something that you probably don't know. Problem 3 cannot be done, and I'm going to show you why it cannot be done. Okay, when you move this over, first of all, that's not a minus, right? That's a plus. So when you move it over, what does it become? It becomes a negative 25. Okay, so that's x squared equals negative 25. And you cannot take the square root of a negative number. You cannot. And if you don't believe me, put it in Desmos. Okay, so let's put the square root of negative 25 in Desmos. Square root of negative 25. Undefined. That means it cannot be defined. It cannot be done. Don't do it. So why does it say that? Well, if I type the equation x squared plus 25, there is no solution because it never crosses the x-axis. Remember, solutions are where they cross here. If it's all the way up here, it's never going to cross, so there is no solution. Okay, there is no solution. So let's go back. Let's put some notes on the back of our paper. Watch this. This has 2 solutions. Okay? This has 1 solution. This has no solution because it never crosses the x-axis. So 2 solutions here, 1 solution here, no solution here. So what's the answer to this problem? No solution. Okay, it cannot be done. No solution. Let's move on. What about this one? What do you do first? Move this over, change the sign, it becomes minus 7. What's 88 minus 7? 88 menos 7 es? It's 81. 88 minus 7 is 81. Equals x squared. What's the last step? Square root. Take the square root of both sides. What's the square root of 81? 9. Look at your table. Here's 81. The square root of 81 is 9. So x equals plus or minus 9. Because x can equal a positive 9 and x can equal a negative 9. Okay? We're almost done. Right here. Because this is already moved over, now we have to divide both sides by negative 2. So that I can cancel that negative 2. So what's negative 98 divided by negative 2? Negative 98 divided by negative 2 is 49. Perfect, because that's what I wanted. So now I have x squared equals 49. What's the last step? What's next? Square root. What's the square root of 49? 7. So x equals plus or minus 7. So that means x equals positive 7 and x equals negative 7. What about the last one? How do you do that? What's the first step? Move this one over, change the sign. So it becomes plus 108. So I have 3x squared equals 108. What's the next step? No square root. What about the 3? Divide. Divide both sides by 3. So type it in Desmos. What is 108 divided by 3? How much? 36. That's perfect. That's what I want. X squared equals 36 because 36 is the perfect square. Take the square root of both sides. X equals plus or minus 6. So x equals 6 is one of the solutions, and x equals negative 6 is the other solution. Well, you can also type this in Desmos. Let's go type it in Desmos so you can see it. I'm going to delete that one. 3x squared minus 108. Here's one solution, positive 6. Here's the other solution, negative 6. Okay? Ready for quizzes? Once you're ready, let me know and I'll put the code up here.